Good morning, everyone, new entrepreneurs and those planning to be entrepreneurs. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'd like to make this as interactive as possible, so please do use the Q&A section, which should be somewhere on your screen. On mine, it's at the top, but I know it might well be at the bottom. And ask any questions as we go along. We'll try to answer them, during this this discussion. But if we don't get to any whilst we're presenting, then obviously we'll address them at the end. So I'm joined this morning with Orlando Salina, who's the Managing Director of Neo7. My name's Tom Cussing.
Hi, morning everyone.
Macalvins. Hi Orlando, how are you doing this morning?
Not too bad, yourself? Nice and warm day.
Very good. Yeah, it's a sunny day actually. It's looking fantastic. So hopefully we are going to get something good out of this. So all of us. I think I'm going to learn something off Orlando. He's going to be very much focused on marketing related stuff and branding your business, and I'll be looking at some other aspects that hopefully will help you to be more successful in whatever business idea you're working with. So we're going to keep this upbeat as possible. But we won't learn anything unless we understand why some startups fail. So we're just going to go through some hopefully very quickly, some key reasons why startups fail. But don't be on a downer from it, because some of the most successful businesses have been started up by people that have failed a serial number of times. So key reasons why startups fail: focus. So a lack of focus is something that many people are troubled with. It's easy sometimes to come up with a good idea. I say it's hard to come up with a good idea, but once you come up with one good idea, I think a number of good ideas follow. And the danger of that, of course, is that you think you're on a roll, but actually what could be happening is that you're losing focus on the key product or idea that you came up with, and bandwidth isn't enough, and therefore you cannot apply the resources, your time, energy, funding to the original idea. So I think one of the most important things is, if you're coming up with an idea, stay very focused on it, and that will certainly aid in your success. Taking advice from the wrong people, another area of potential failure. And when you talk to friends, family, also professionals about your ideas, very important. Get their support, of course, but it should be non-biased. They should be giving you an honest view of things, but also bear in mind that you might be speaking to people that don't really understand what it is you're trying to deliver to the market. So I find it's great, and my mum went like this. I could talk to my mum about lots of things, but if I start talking to her about the accountancy profession and getting her thoughts and ideas on that, then they may not be the right things for me to look at. Sorry, Mum. So I just mentioned that in passing, but speaking to the right people is very, very important, and I can't underline that any more than I have. A lack of business knowledge, the right mentoring. I recall very early in my career, I worked for a period at a law firm. The chap that ran that law firm is a gentleman called Patrick. I won't give away his last name. He might be watching this. But he's somebody I worked with for about 4 or 5 years. And we're talking 30 years ago now, more than 30 years ago. And even to this day, I check in with him. If I'm thinking about something, troubled with something, I go back to him and I say, how do you think I should approach this? A guy very wise back then, wiser now, 30 years on. And I think having that mentorship is quite important. Sometimes it's not somebody that personally. It could be that you need to go to, external professionals, whether they are lawyers, accountants, marketing experts, all sorts of people. So, make sure you have somebody that will help mentor you. And nobody is too big or too successful to not be mentored, in my view. Other thing as well, lack of business knowledge, finance, operations and marketing. We're going to come into this in a little more detail later on. because obviously it's a key area for your success. Running out of cash, incorrect pricing model. It's an interesting study that was done a few years ago. And, Orlando, you may know about this. So the power of nine, and it's a silly thing, but you'll see, obviously there's the 99p store versus the pound store. There are been a number of studies where it has shown selling two identical products, one for 97 pence and another one for 99 pence. The more expensive one sells more.
Yes.
Everybody knows that, if you look at it, you do the math, the 97p one should be the one you go for. But funny things, people go for the 99 pence one. And this works time and time again. And, Orlando, I don't know if you've got a few things to say on that particular point there.
Well, in my earlier days in retail marketing, we came up with it is the power of nine. So rather than saying this bed, for example, or this item was £1,000, now 500, it was £1,000, now 499, for example, or save £299. You're actually spending 1,000, but the fact that you're seeing something that's round down, it's not round up to the higher figure, it actually plays with your mind a bit and say, oh, I'm actually saving a lot here, when you're actually not. You see the bargain.
It's crazy, isn't it? So there's no logic in it. I just put it down to magic. I don't know. But anyway, getting the right pricing model right. Listen, it's not the same for all businesses. I think in professional service firms, I don't think it would make much difference if we sold our services for, £99 per hour versus £100 per hour. I'm not sure it quite works in our space as an accounting firm, but I think in a lot of other spaces it does. So definitely getting the right pricing model is important. I'm not saying you should use the power of 99, but you should definitely bear in mind pricing psychology. Very important.
I actually do use it, Tariq, just letting you know. In my
sorry?
I actually do use it in my packages for social media, so yeah.
There you go. Poor marketing and lack of market knowledge. These are two areas, of course, Orlando is going to go into in more detail later on. The second half of this session this morning is very much focused on the marketing side of things. So we won't talk too much about that at this early stage. So, okay, we've talked about the doom and gloom. We've talked about reasons why some businesses aren't as successful as they might like to be, why they fail. But what are the key reasons why startups succeed? That's what we're here for. That's what we want to talk about this morning. As I said before, don't worry. There are thousands of stories of failures that have resulted in incredible successes down the road. Steve Jobs at Apple, Richard Branson and Virgin. The important thing is pick yourself up, learn from any mistakes that have been made, and from those war wounds, start again. So, very important thing to bear in mind. So, founders are driven by passion. Passion is the most effective motivator when it comes to launching a business. If you've got no passion for it, no energy for it, then you're probably going to find it very, very difficult to succeed. You might be just very lucky, though, I should say. So often one of the strongest predictors of whether an idea will lead to success. But what happens when you have an idea that isn't necessarily related to your passions? How do you deal with that? I come up with things all the time and I think, okay, yeah, that's a great idea, but how do I apply this to our industry? Well, I can take inspiration. We mentioned Richard Branson earlier on. He's launched a number of businesses over time, but one of the businesses he launched was Virgin Money. Which has got nothing to do with what he's more known for. Obviously, travel, tourism, etc., etc. So he recommends seeing that the idea, this great idea that you've got, is it transferable to something that you are passionate about? So in the case of Richard Branson, he looked at Virgin Money. It's a bank. What does he know about banking? Very, very little, other than, of course, he works with them. But what he looked at, he thought, customer service, what I'm really, really good at is customer service. Is that transferable to another industry, another sector? So for him, passionate about customer service, transfer that into banking, and hey, presto, got a very successful banking operation. So I think, in the words of, and this is a quote, Richard Branson, our team saw a great opportunity for revamping customer service in banking. While I wasn't passionate about banking, customer service is something that interests me. In fact, it drives the entire Virgin ethos. So clearly very important. Another key area for success as an entrepreneur is having a strong team around you. This, again, can't be underestimated. I mean, a team could be just you plus one other, but I mean, quite often it's broader and it's people with different types of skill sets. So business success is a result of a perfectly orchestrated and collaborated team effort. In fact, without a team to back you up, success can be next to impossible. It is important to understand that teams are built through time. You can't just put a bunch of people together and expect them to deliver the results that you have planned for them. We only have to look at, whether you follow football or not, but you only have to look at the success of football teams and throwing lots and lots of money at teams, but it doesn't necessarily result in success immediately. It's a combination of different things that are going to make you successful. Not least, good leadership, critical for the success of a team. The leader establishes the team's drive for excellence. It's important to develop those skills. If you don't have them, get some training, get some consulting. We might be able to introduce you to different people. The role of the leader is very much to mentor the team, be the cheerleader. When people are doing a great job driving them forward, be a counselor sometimes, but quite often, and as being the servant as well. Sometimes you just need to be there for the members of the team, to help them through. Goals as well, of course, they serve as the team's guiding compass, giving direction to the business, giving direction to the individuals, and letting everybody know what direction you're going in. There's no point saying we're going to achieve this unless you know how you're going to get there. So having clear goals and breaking them down, milestones and such like, absolutely essential. Commitment is vital for your team's perseverance. Whilst saying I want to be involved in a business, yeah, it's great, and I can do this, etc., etc. Commitment is what will get you to the end goal. Being involved, yeah, it's nice to be involved, of course it is, but I think having team members are absolutely committed to what it is you're looking to achieve as an entrepreneur, as a business, is essential. You won't get everything you need if you don't have everybody committed to the cause. If there's one person that is not committed to the cause, then, like multiplying fractions, they are going to stop you getting where you want to get to at the pace you want to get there. So I think that's absolutely essential. Communication bridges the gap and will create the firm bonds of the team. There can never be too much communication. And, I speak myself, I struggle with it quite often because I've got lots of other things going on. And, it is, it's one of the most difficult things to do, but it's also one of the most important things to do. And by the way, communication is a two-way street. It's not just the leader, the entrepreneur that has to communicate, but it's also, people within the team that have to communicate, people across the whole organization, upwards, downwards, sideways, they need to be communicating. Absolutely essential. So focus on finance and, sorry, I think I might have jumped a slide. Or two. Apologies for that. I think I was a bit trigger happy. So seek leadership and advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Yes, it's your idea, and yes, it's an amazing idea. You're brilliant. You're going to be successful. But you can share some of that success with other people. And I'm not talking financially share it with them, but it's good to be able to go to other people and ask their thoughts and ideas. The right people as well. Go back to my point earlier on about the wrong advice. The wrong advice is better than no advice than the wrong advice. So make sure you're going to the right people. I think that's the important thing. So, seek out help and support. As I mentioned, that gentleman, Patrick, that I go to, I haven't spoken to him for a few months, but when I'm troubled with something, and I just want to bounce it off somebody objectively outside of our business, I go to Patrick and I sort of kick a few things around. He gives me a few thoughts and ideas. He plays devil's advocate. He happens to be a lawyer, so he's very good at it. And it's very, very useful. It doesn't mean that I actually do what he says, but I've been able to sort of go through the motions with him and decide, between him and I, work out where there may be some difficulties or challenge the sort of status quo. So I think that's really, really important. So do seek help, do seek advice. You can't do everything on your own. Now we get on to the really exciting stuff. Obviously there's an accounting firm focused on finance. Listen, there's a reason why there's so many accounting firms across the UK. There's so many accountants. It's because it's critical for the success of a business. If you do not know what makes up the numbers in your business, where money's come from, where it's going to, what funding you need to be able to invest in certain equipment, resources for the longevity of the business, then you're either going to be very, very lucky, which I would suggest is not the best way to run a business, or you're going to fail. So, getting your finances right is absolutely essential. Operations. So when I talk about operations, it depends what business you're in, but obviously operations are different for every business, but you still need to have a way to operate. And, we refer to that as target operating model. So when you start up, you establish how you're going to run your business, end to end, from producing whatever it is you're producing to actually putting it out in the marketplace as well. So this is actually essential. Getting that target operating model right. Don't be afraid to tweak it if it doesn't work, but don't do it on a wing and a prayer. Don't just sort of wake up and say, okay, I'm going to do this today and it's going to be successful. Yeah, it might be. You might be lucky. But like I said, I think having a plan is much more important than being just lucky. Luck is good too. Don't get me wrong. And marketing.
Sorry,
Orlando?
I can attest to that. The focus on finance and operations, that's not my strong point at all. So, having conversations with like of yourselves to help me to grow in that area or help me understand in those particular areas really help guide me in the right direction for my business, because I'm good at marketing. Those are the other factors that I have no idea about. And without your guidance in this area, I think I wouldn't be here today talking with you guys.
Ditto. So that goes the other way as well, because obviously marketing's not my forte either. And, that's where I go. I'm always seeking help. On the marketing side of the business, you just need to have that right. Finance operations, I would say that's my strength. Marketing is one of my weaker areas, and certainly weak or even weaker than what Orlando can provide means that that there's another place to go to get help. And I think it's absolutely essential. Getting your product to the market and keeping it there is again as important as finance, as operations, and such like. So don't underestimate marketing at all. But again, like I said, Orlando's going to tell us a little bit more about that later. Yeah. Patience and persistence. Okay, these are considered the two pillars of entrepreneurship. Make no mistake, getting on the right footing with your business, watching it flourish, pivoting it if you need to, i.e. sort of switching it this way, switching it that way because you've got to tweak some areas. It requires a lot of hard work. So don't expect to be sitting and enjoying all the rewards anytime soon. It's not that simple. And, I'm sure if we look at the likes of the Richard Bransons of this world, I doubt they spent a day without thinking about their business, without being involved in their business. And that's gone on and on and on until sort of you reach retirement. And even then, you probably think about all the mistakes you made, all of the other things you could have done in a different way. So don't think it's not going to come from hard work. But what most people fear, however, is not the hard work. I mean, I think, people that want to be an entrepreneur, I think naturally they say, yeah, I'm not afraid of hard work. That's brilliant. What they fear is the result of that hard work. They fear the failure. And I would say, don't fear the failure. As long as you plan correctly, you do the right level of research, you put your business plan together, You've got the right operating model. You know, you've seeked out the areas that are going to help your business be successful, like, you know, we mentioned earlier, operations, finance, marketing, and such like. Then, you know, there's a very, very good chance you're going to be successful. But if you're not, don't worry about it. You can pick yourself up and start again. It's fine. So also don't sort of, you know, I remember an old saying from, let's call it previous life, when we were looking at sort of moving into new market areas and things like that. And it's a proverb, it's quite famous, you've probably heard of it sort of before. You need to lose sight of the shore, the shoreline, to find new lands. So there's no point just sort of hanging around over here and sort of say, oh, I'll stay close to this and hope you're going to get all the way over there, or you're going to find something new. You have to lose sight of it. You've got to move on. You've got to be adventurous and courageous. So, I mean, every great entrepreneur today has overcome the shackles of fear, underconfidence, you know, before they've climbed that ladder of success. And, you know, some examples of some very, very successful with the company, but maybe not the person behind the company. So there's a gentleman called Narayana Murthy. He's actually an Indian gentleman of Indian origin, and so he's born and brought up. You know, he was in IT. He worked for, you know, he's a small guy in a small company, but he realized that life had so much more than just this. And you know, he's retired today, thankfully. But he started up a business with 10,000 rupees. That's about £100, and a handful of colleagues, friends. So there were 4 or 5 of them, and they started up what is now Infosys, which is one of the largest technology sort of outsourcers, you know, in the world. He amassed a wealth of $4 billion, there or thereabouts, $4 billion in the space of about 20 years. I mean, that is incredible. This is a guy, you know, just an average, well, I say an average guy, obviously it's not average to being successful as that, but the world saw him as average until he got up and done his own thing. So incredibly successful. And the other chap, Jack Ma, which you may know the brand rather than him, but he's the founder of Alibaba, which you will be familiar with. So this is a gentleman that couldn't get a job anywhere. You know, we're talking in China, he couldn't get a job anywhere. He applied along with 40 other people for a job in KFC, and he was the only person that they rejected. That's how tough it was. And you know, through a little bit of good fortune, you know, he went to the US, he started understanding things about the internet and so on and so forth. And hey, you know, today, Alibaba, you know, one of the largest companies in the world. So incredible success. If these people have stopped there at KFC and said, oh, I can't get a job at KFC, I'm useless or whatever, and not continued to live life, you know, in the way they wanted to, then they would not have been the successful people they are today. So drive is patience, persistence, absolutely essential. Prime quality of a true entrepreneur. Attention to detail. Now, you know, we had a little bit of detail, and there's a lot more detail. You know, we're just sort of touching the surface. But you know, like it says on the tin, you know, don't leave anything out. Remember, people cannot see what's in your head, and you need to document and communicate it. And you know, look for the flaws, discuss the flaws, challenge the flaws, speak to advisors. You know, if you read the biography of Steve Jobs, and I mean, this is a, you know, well-trodden, well-known story. You know, you'll see the amount of focus and passion he had for making sure his vision of any given product was delivered precisely as he imagined. And you know, I mean, to the extent that actually he was quite a difficult person to work with, because the attention to detail he had, people didn't understand, you know, why he was so focused on the smallest things. But you know, again, Apple today, one of the top 3 or 4 companies in the world in terms of value, incredible success. And you might be watching this webinar and thinking, well, you know, I'm not going to be Steve Jobs. Well, you know, it's what Steve Jobs probably thought. He wasn't going to be Steve Jobs either. He had an idea. He wanted to run a successful business, but I doubt he expected it to be at one point in the past, you know, few years, it was the most valuable company in the world. So, you know, I doubt that was a part of his plan. Cash is king. So we come back again to finance, but it's true. Cash is king. You know, it's the lifeblood of every business. Without it, you simply can't survive. You know, all too often I hear from clients or you know, colleagues. I've spoken to clients, and you know, we're trying to get a little bit more involved in the finances of their business. They say, oh, you know, I don't need management accounts every month. I don't need cash flow reports every week. You know, it's boring. I'm focusing on doing the work. You know, I just look at my bank balance and I work out from that, you know, what I need to pay. You know, in my head, you know, I know I've got to pay Jack this, Jane that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've got this money, and they just work it out. And again, it's a bit of a wing and a prayer, you know, in running their business. But somehow, some people get away with it. They do. They tend to be very similar. They tend to be very small businesses with either not the ambition or desire to be bigger. You know, they just want to do what they're doing, or they don't understand what will help their business grow, and so they're missing out these sort of key ingredients. So they tend to create just enough profit to pay a reasonable wage to the owner, or reasonable income to the owner. And I think if that's all you want as an entrepreneur, then maybe it's better not to be an entrepreneur, because you know, you've got all the risk of being an entrepreneur. But if all you want is actually to earn what you could earn working for somebody else, then maybe it's better to put the risk with somebody else and being an employee. So, you know, what I'm saying with all of that is that, you know, you've got to take some risks, but they're calculated risks. And if you sort of look at some of these areas we've been talking about this morning, you know, what can help you be more successful, then, you know, I think they're worth taking. But if you're just doing it to earn an income, then sometimes it's better just to be an employee. So I think these are just things to mull around in your head. To run a successful business, you do need to focus on the areas that we've been discussing this morning to make it successful. I think, you know, here's just some basic things, you know, what you need to start up a company. We've just thrown this in here. I'm not going to go into any great detail in this, to be honest with you. You know, we can talk about this offline. Happy for anybody to drop me an email, and we can go through it. But, you know, things like shareholders agreements, these are important. And this is largely down to, you know, where you're an investor, you've got multiple investors in a business, and you just want to have something that governs how you're going to run the business in certain key areas. And that could be sort of things like, you know, dividend policies or investments in something over a certain value, and so on and so forth. So I think this is quite important. So don't underestimate the importance of the shareholders agreement. It may sound like a big thing, a cumbersome thing. It is. You know, often these things run into 30 pages plus of paperwork, but they tend to be things that, as you go through, you'll recognize the importance of addressing these things. You know, think about how you're going to extract income from the business too, because obviously, ultimately, that's what you're going to want to do, what you're going to need to do. We've got a webinar on our website which actually talks and gives some tips around ways to extract income out of the business, salary versus dividend, etc., etc. So, you know, do have a look at some of those other webinars that we've got on our website. Obviously, insurances, payroll, directors' responsibilities, and of course, getting the right accounting system set up. This actually ties in very neatly with your target operating model. I would have said 10, 15 years ago, the accounting system was somewhere over here, and then the operations of the business were somewhere over here. But with the interconnectivity now, with so many different systems and applications, the finance element, the finance system, is so integrated with everything else that businesses are doing now. It's incredible. Not knowing what businesses any of you are in, but I mean, if you take, for example, going into a restaurant nowadays, you know, there'll be a waiter, a waitress will come up to you, and sometimes you don't even have those anymore. They just tend to download an app on your phone. But they'll come up to you, you'll select what it is you want to eat. That information is immediately being logged into the accounting system. It's immediately being logged into inventory systems. It's immediately being sent to the kitchen so that you know what to prepare, and it provides so much information on how your business is running, and dealing with things like stock control, dealing with things like banking, and so on and so forth. So I think these are areas where, in fact, we can, Macalvins, we can do quite a lot in this area. We've done a lot of work with so many different businesses, whether they're property rental businesses, restaurants, hotels, all sorts of online businesses as well, providing that interconnectivity between the point of sale through to actually getting the money into your bank account. So that's pretty much it from me, but I'm going to hand over now to Orlando, who's going to talk a little bit more about achieving success as an entrepreneur, but being much more focused on the marketing side of things. So over to you, Orlando.
Thanks, Tariq. Hi again, everyone. Really great thanks for inviting me on to today's webinar. I myself am a new entrepreneur, working with other people for helping build other people's businesses and empires. Decided to take this, up this chance, take the risk, as you were saying earlier on, myself, a couple of years in. And there are lots of challenges, but I think, well, I know I'm good at what I do. As you are with finance, I'm with marketing. So this is where I decided to put my focus and my passion, So let's talk a little bit about marketing itself, just to clarify that for people. Do you mind going to the next slide, please? Okay, so we'll just touch on a few points here. So why is marketing crucial to the success of startups and businesses in general? Defining your business goals, identifying your target audience, identifying the problems or pain points that you can solve for your customers or clients, and developing your business brand. So those are the main areas I'm going to touch on today. Next slide, please. Ooh, that's me. Good. Right, so marketing. Why is marketing so crucial? Marketing is much more than a clever email campaign or social media post. It's integral to the integral component to the company's development and creation of its brand identity. There are myths in some circles that building a great product is all that's necessary to build a business and business success. Build it and it will come, so to speak. But I think basing your go-to-market strategy on a quote from a movie is a recipe for disaster. We should think of marketing in a more holistic sense, including the brand, the interface, the key messages, the distribution channels, and methods for acquisition. In reality, the lines between product and marketing is a bit blurred, I would say, if non-existent in some cases. And failing to invest in those key areas, such as your name, your brand, personality, means you're leaving the key product decision to chance. So marketing helps to establish many different things: a unique identity for your business, excuse me, to differentiate your business from the competition, provides a promise of longevity to clients and investors, and develops customer relationships and loyalty. Paying for marketing might seem like another unnecessary expense to many, and something to put off until the right time. But without marketing, no startup, I believe, can acquire the customers or clients at the rate that will allow them to grow into a mature company. Okay, so let's look at a few key elements that you should consider to successfully market your products and services in the business. So in most startups, the owners and the employees have to be the jack of all trades. Often due to, I would say, budget constraints or lack of resources. Take, for example, my circumstance. When I first started 2 years ago, I was responsible for business strategy, business development, sales outreach, account management. I would even do video production, editing, photography, and much more. And the other two members of my team, they would support me in everything that I did and a lot more. But of course, For all startups, the key or principal focus is product or service development. And I think that will always be so until the release stage of that. But what about the other elements that help sustain business growth? You know, there are so many things to think about as an entrepreneur, so many things to do, and in most cases, not enough time to do them. So to help guide your thoughts and prioritize your next steps, I would say you need to define SMART goals, break them into short, medium, and long term, and that's the starting point from there. So, for example, you know, you maintain cash flow for the year 2020-21 is a short-term goal. Build a more recognizable brand in your local community within the next 6 months. Get £100,000 funding in year 1 to facilitate the growth and expansion of a new product line. Or it might simply be employee retention of over 3 months on the shop floor. It all depends on your business model and the business you're in. Whatever your goals are, defining them will help you to develop a robust marketing strategy and identify the resources, tactics, and budgets required to achieve them. And also it'll provide you with milestones in order to help you to monitor the progress that you're making along the way. Next slide, please. It's also important to remember that your strategy should be adaptable in the event that you have to adjust your goals. For example, in my strategy, before and after March 31st were very different due to the pandemic, and being able to quickly adapt and adjust helped to keep me in business. So now we've identified our goals, for example, and it's given your marketing efforts direction and focus, which is great. But who exactly are we marketing to? This is something that's very important as a next step. For your startup's marketing efforts to bring in tangible results, those efforts need to be tailored to a specific target audience. Now, you'll probably have a good understanding of who you want to target or what types of businesses you want to target. But have you considered or have you articulated this to your team members, or at least put together a document detailing, let's say, your buyer persona, right? You may be asking, what's a buyer persona? Well, it's a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer. It's based on market research, current data, your existing customers, and also a few educated assumptions. You know, a typical buyer persona will outline their habits, the most used social media channels, preferred types of content that they consume, demographic information, their hobbies, their job status, shopping preferences, and so on. And let me give you an example. You know, one of Neo7's buyer personas, and I'll use the character on the screen now. This is Samantha, right? Samantha is a businesswoman in the early 40s. She owns a retail company with an online shop. She lives in London, and turnovers are roughly 40K per annum. She's bubbly and business savvy, but needs help managing her social media. She uses, personally, Facebook and Instagram, but for business, she uses LinkedIn and Twitter. She wants to grow her business and increase online revenue, but she has a small team and a very small budget. What could we offer to help her? Well, thinking about it, we could offer to take social media off of her hands and give her more time to focus on the business side. You know, using social media for her to drive more traffic to her site, increase her online sales through reaching new audiences and through targeted advertising. This is our area of specialty. This is not where she wants to focus. So this is something that we can do, take off her hands to help her to do what she's really good at. So that's one of our client persona. We've identified that this person is one of the people we want to target. With this information, we are able to target content towards Samantha online or others like her. It will help us to decide what type of content she might find useful, where to find her, what types of ads she will consume, which of our services will be more likely that she will be interested in. So that's helped to reach more specific or our specific audience. Next slide, please.
I was going to say on this, Orlando, there's nobody like Google that does this better. Yeah.
Well,
They're quite notorious for it now.
well, there's so much more on the market as well, Terry, because creating a buyer persona is obviously, I think, is quite essential in target marketing. But there's so many different platforms. For example, there's Hootsuite, there's Social Sprout, that you can plan all your content, but it also monitors what people say on all social media channels. So you can use social monitoring to find out what people are saying, if they're talking about your brand or competitors' brands, and then you could dial into that conversation. You know, if you once you put in the right keywords in there, so you can actually reach potential customers from not just from Google, but from lots of other companies that are changing the way that, you know, marketing actually interacts with consumers. But there's so many benefits to this buyer persona that I mentioned just now. It helps you to understand the drivers and business challenges and the needs of those to whom you want to market to. You know, you can use this information to build marketing and ad campaigns that focus on the right people at the right time and place of the buyer journey. Next slide, please. So let me ask a question. You know, why would any of you who are listening today hire an accountant, or let's say a graphic designer or a web developer? And I don't expect you to answer right away, but if I asked Tariq, why would you hire a web developer? Because there's a specific resource that you've identified that your business needs to achieve the objectives, right? And you don't have that internally. So this is a problem or a pain point that you may have. Now, your prospective customers or clients will also have pain points. And because you now know, based on the personas you've created, who your ideal customers are, you are better equipped to identify what their pain points are. And now you can position your business as a viable solution. Like any problem, for example, customers' pain points can be as diverse and varied as your prospective customers themselves. You know, not all prospects will be aware of the pain points that they're experiencing, which can make it a bit difficult to market to them. But again, we're trying to address that with understanding them better and understanding exactly what their needs are. So it's your job to help your prospects realize they have a problem and to convince them that your product or service will help them solve that problem. You know, although you can think of pain points as simple problems, they're often grouped into several broader categories. And these are the ones on screen now. So I put them into four main categories: you know, financial, productivity, process, and marketing. You might be, your clients or prospective clients might be thinking, oh, we're spending too much money on our current provider and they want to reduce their spend. Or we're thinking, we're wasting too much time with our current provider and want to use our time more efficiently to increase productivity. They may be thinking, I want to improve my internal processes, such as assigning leads to sales reps or nurturing lower priority leads to see how we can get more out of that. Or from a marketing perspective, they want to increase brand awareness, launch a new product, drive more online sales, or increase online profitability. So my point is, viewing customer pain points in these categories allows you to start thinking about how to position your company or product as a solution to the prospect's problems. Let me give an example. So if your prospect pain points are financial and marketing, or fall into those categories, you could highlight different price packages at lower monthly subscriptions, or emphasize the increased ROI some of your satisfied customers experience after becoming a monthly paying client versus ad hoc support. Yeah. So this now leads me nicely into developing your business brand. And what is a brand? Many people don't understand what this is because they think, oh, it's just a logo. And I found this quote online. I thought I would share it. A brand was originally the term used when referring to the mark that cattle ranchers did on their cattle. But you know, the idea of a brand has evolved to encompass much more than just a name or a symbol. One of the mistakes many startups typically make in the early stages of development is overlooking the importance of marketing and branding on their company image. While logistics and our startup like finances and shipping and delivery, employee packages and so on are essential, startup branding and advertising are also incredibly important to a company's internal solidarity, customer outreach, and overall success. I mentioned earlier that marketing is much more than an email campaign or social media post. Well, your brand is so much more than just a logo. Your brand logo, is the face of your business. But that face should do more than just look cool or be interesting. A logo's contribution to the brand identity is also associative. It communicates and expresses your core values and business methods, which adds coherence and organization to a company's mission. Having a brand identity doesn't make your product more memorable. It makes your brand more authoritative in the market. A brand that establishes a face and maintains that face consistently over time develops credibility among competitors, and it also develops credibility among its customers. When you create an identity for your brand, you're giving it something to stand for. That in turn gives your company a purpose. We all know that companies have mission statements. It took me quite a while to develop my mission statement, and I've worked on quite a few branding exercises where it took from one day and one exercise to months and a lot of different research groups and questionnaires to actually come up with what their mission statement should be. But without a mission statement, first, how can you have a brand identity? So that is a very, very important, it's key. A brand identity is a template for everything you would include on an ad for your business. Whether it be an ad that's in print, online ad, a pre-roll on a YouTube video, a brand with a face and industry credibility is well prepared to promote itself and make impressions on potential buyers and investors. A brand identity is also, a brand identity, one with a face, one with trust and a mission attracts people who agree with what their brand has to offer. But once these people become customers, the brand identity gives them a sense of belonging. A good brand generates customers. Let me say that again, sorry. A good product generates customers, but a good brand generates advocates. So if you want your business to become well-known and a beloved brand, it's going to take a lot of work. The steps outlined in this webinar will help you to plan for success on your entrepreneurial journey. Of course, there are many, many other things that we can talk about, but I think these areas that were touched on will help in becoming a successful entrepreneur. Added with all the stuff that Tariq had mentioned earlier on, I think we're on the journey to success. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Tariq and Macalvins for inviting me along to this webinar. I hope you found the information useful, and if you need any help and additional marketing support, please get in touch.
Great, Amanda, thank you for that. I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's come up by Lou. So I'm a really new business, I have no clients yet, but where do I start my research for my ideal customer and creating a customer persona?
Good question. So new business, new clients, obviously you have to identify your target audience by thinking, right, who am I making these products for? Is it, obviously a bit more information about the business will help, but let's just say you're making, I don't know, badges, for example. And these badges are targeted to young kids. They would have pocket money, but you may want to target their parents because they want to get presents for Christmas, for birthdays, for whatever else. So identifying who your target audience is will help. And then once you group that now, so target audience is parents, so you're looking at moms because moms attend all the school fairs and this other stuff. that's step one. And then you can start breaking that down into a persona. So is it local community? Is it wider audience? So breaking them down into different sections and then start segmenting these people based on their location, based on their age, based on their spending habits, based on their interests, will help you to start creating a map for your persona.
Yeah, that's good. I did just ping Lou a quick message asking what product or service it is that she's involved with. But if they come back, then obviously we can address that more specifically. I've got a question for you, Lou.
Yeah.
What comes first, the brand or the product?
Oh, it's like chicken and egg, isn't it?
That's why I gave it. That's why I threw it out there.
Yeah. I would say the product, because you have a product or a service, right? So you came up with an idea. You're an entrepreneur. You have an idea, and it's like, right, I've got this new pen that does everything. It writes for me, for example. So that's what you've created, the service or the product that is required, that's needed out there. So the first thing is coming up with that brand, the product or the service. And once you've identified what problems that particular product or service solves, then you can start developing a brand around that, right? So is it something that's going to be used by students in school? Is it something that's going to be used by teachers, lecturers? Is it going to be used by business people? And that will help you define, your branding. Is it going to be, if it's targeted at kids, for example, it has to be something that is interactive and playful and will capture their attention. So they're watching television and there's an advert pops up, for example, or on a newspaper. It has to be cartoony or interactive that will catch your attention, and they'll ask mommy, oh, can I have that? But if it's something for business people, then you have to be totally different. If it's corporate, you have to be targeting or creating a brand that will attract or be receptive to the people in the corporate world. So I would say, answer your question, the short answer is product first, then the brand.
Then the brand, right. And I've got you mentioned television and having something that's interactive. I don't know if this is by design or not, but we've got two small dogs now. And if there's ever, so one of the dogs is a pug, the other one's a Pomeranian. The Pomeranian is normally the noisy one, but she doesn't watch TV. The pug does.
Yes.
So the pug, if it doesn't matter what's on, he'll be very quiet. But as soon as any animal, is on the TV, he can see it, and he's just straight at the TV, trying to, lick this animal that's on the TV. It doesn't matter what animal it is. And of course, that draws my attention and my wife's attention to the TV. So, I don't know. It's great. I think it's great marketing, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the way marketing is just, the way marketing has evolved now, there's so much more that goes into creating an ad. It's deep diving into what will trigger things like that, for example. So they know for a fact the dog can't pay for it.
Yeah.
They will probably have done, hall tests and all sorts of different research to see what creates or triggers a reaction with dogs. So that comes up on TV, the dog is laying there while you're watching TV. You're not interested in the ad at all. And the dog is laying there eating or just sleeping, and that comes up. The music triggers them, or what they see there triggers them. And it's like, oh, we need to get this for whatever.
Well, quite often they're not even advertising anything for pets. I mean, it could be a car. It could be a car and there's a dog jumping in the back of a Range Rover or something like that. Yeah, I'm using it as a silly example, but it's quite often the dog has got nothing to do with the product.
Yeah,
it's just a part of the scenery.
Exactly.
But it's what gets my dog up and gets my attention on the TV. I'm not even watching them. So there you go. By the way, Lou's come back and said that firstly, that's very helpful what you said on Sona, and the product is children's books. So I think with the analogy you were using, we might have sort of ticked a few boxes there anyway, inadvertently. So that's great. Okay, so listen, I don't know, Orlando, have you got any sort of thoughts? I mean, one thing I'm going to throw a question on myself, which was on a similar question to you, brand or or product.
Yeah.
And then the one I'm throwing on myself is idea or cash, being the accountant in all of this. And I would say idea first, cost it out, make sure you understand what it's going to be to take to market, and then go and hunt the money down. Because if it's a good idea, you'll get the money. The money will come.
Well, I have a quick question for you as well.
Ouch.
You know, obviously, as a startup, the different sizes. I mean, is it a sole trader, or you've got a few people working for you? Is it worth me getting, you know, an accountant if I've got, let's say, two people or three people on the payroll, plus myself, to deal with paying out all invoices, paying salaries? Because it's something I don't really have the time to be doing all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, see, a lot of people don't like anything to do with administration, whether it's accounting or whatever it is. They just don't like it. So I think if you're not going to do it, going back to my point earlier on about, you know, managing your business, managing your cash flow, managing your finances, somebody needs to do it. Yeah. And it will be probably the single most reason for business failure is not having a handle on the cash of the business. Having said that, there's a lot of ways to automate, you know, a lot of those processes now. I was mentioning before, you know, your accounting system, cloud-based, tying it in with the operations of your business. So you're selling a product, just placing the order, you know, that one thing that the client, the customer does, for example, placing the order, whether it's online or whatever it is, that might do the whole accounting transaction, you know, book the whole activity. But you need to have the right setup at the beginning. So, you know, you can use things like Xero, QuickBooks, and various other sort of applications if you're online businesses, things like Shopify, payment systems like Stripe and things like that. So all of these sort of things we can help pull together to kind of, as much as possible, automate the process. So you don't really need to think of, you know, let's say Macalvins, punching away at, you know, bookkeeping entries and things like that. You might actually be doing very little. But what we could be doing is getting your business set up efficiently from the beginning so that you don't find yourself in a difficult spot 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road. We're involved in the business at the moment. It's a very small business, online business. Today, we've got a fantastic idea. It is going to be a very, very successful business. I'm convinced about it. I can't tell you too much about it at the moment because it's a completely new idea.
Oh, brilliant.
We signed a non-disclosure agreement. So it will launch in the next month or two. And basically what we will be doing for them is automating as much as possible the sort of, if you like, order to cash. So when the client signs up for this offering through to actually getting paid, and then as much as possible being able to produce management accounts, not quite automated because, you know, you still need to have some sort of knowledge and discretion on that judgment, if you like. It's just, the computer's not going to give you the judgment. But automate as much as possible. And it's actually, you know, getting it right at the beginning, save a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you really can.
Oh, brilliant. Just one thing before we close, well, two things. And it's a common mistake because my name, everyone's calls me Orlando, but my name is actually Orlando. So the web, my email.
So you say that, Orlando, you say that, and then you say it again, and I've just seen on your email address.
Yeah.
Which is confusing with what's on the screen.
Yeah. I've had to return checks because of it in the past because my name was spelled incorrectly.
So it doesn't have an R.
It doesn't have an R. Yes.
Okay, so everybody, apologies. That is an error on the part of Macalvins. So we've set this up. It's not that Orlando got his email address wrong. We've got it wrong. It's OLANDO @neo7.co.uk. If it doesn't go through, just make sure, if you're going to send something, copy me in, and then my email address is correct. Anyway, so, listen, Orlando, firstly, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully, everybody attended has found this of some use. You've got our contact details there. Please do get in touch if there's anything else that we can help you with. We can. Happy to spend, 15, 20 minutes on the phone with you, or any email questions you might have to deal with some sort of introductory type stuff. And that's about it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Orlando, again. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tariq.
Thank you.